Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are back in the shop, knee deep in the $10 pocket knife battle. Today's contender is the Coast DX344. This knife is pro grade. It's got a lifetime warranty, and actually, this is a local company not far from where I grew up in Portland, Oregon. You know, Portland's really a mecca for knife companies. You've got Kai brands, Kershaw and CT. You've got Benchmade and CRKT and Gerber. All these really big knife companies come out of Portland. Coast, not necessarily one of the big ones and not necessarily one of the more quality brands coming out of Portland. But it is kind of cool to see a local company. Now, the lifetime warranties for a brand like this, I must say, the one time that I had it was a Gerber pear frame and it broke. I just went straight into Walmart where I purchased it and I handed them the knife. They handed me a brand new one, no questions asked. So that was pretty cool. I don't know if that would be the same would hold true for Coast. I bought this at Home Depot. I also bought this Husky later to be reviewed. Do you think these guys were made by the same people? I do. The packaging is just too similar. But let's get into the thick of the knife here. Not a bad looking blade. I will say in the hand, it says it's G10. I don't think that's G10. That does not feel like G10. Picking this up, it feels like ABS black plastic. It has a very cheap feeling scale. Now this is legitimate real G10. Stuff I use when I'm making my own knives. It is from Alpha Knife Supply, Black G10, and it is fibers embedded in resin, and it has a rougher feel. That's kind of why people love the G10, because as you mill it, you get a lot of texture, a lot of grip. This doesn't feel like G10 at all. Let's do a little test. If you cut into real G10, you feel all the fibers, and it makes a horrible noise. My guess is that this is not going to make that same noise. I don't think that's G10. Focus. I think this is just ABS. This is just black plastic, and they're calling it G10. Not the best feeling in the hand. It has a cheap plastic feeling, not what you get from true G10. One thing to note, that unlike our current placeholder, this knife does have stainless steel liners. It is a liner lock with some rather thin stainless steel liners, but the lockup does feel stout. And you've got a little bit of travel here for engagement. The knife can wear in a bit before it's completely out of slop. One hand opening. This is a stiff action here. It needs to be loosened up or lubed. Oh. You really get your wrist behind it and you can get that to open one-handed. Of course, you could argue it has one-handed opening because you can work your way up and get it to open, but does not open very easily. Not a very quick deployment speed on this one. Centering is decent. Pillar construction. The first knife on the review with a clip, which is awesome. And you'll notice that it actually has a lock. If you engage it, you will not be able to actuate the liner lock. It just impedes this from being pushed over. You can either use it or leave it alone, unlike the auto locks from a brand like CRKT, where it would automatically deploy once you open up the knife. Not a bad little feature. Aesthetically speaking, I think it's very average. The complete drop is not my favorite design. It just kind of looks beaky. I don't know. It's not my favorite. Full flat grind. The handle, I think, looks better than the blade. I think it's a very fine handle design. The blade is 3CR13 MOV. So on the lower grade of all these Chinese stainless, we'll see how it holds up in its edge retention tests. For our first category of aesthetics and initial quality, I'm going to give this a 5. It's very average. It has a nice lockup, but these scales, they don't have a great feeling in hand. Have some sharp edges in here. It doesn't feel like G10. In fact, I'm pretty sure this is just some black ABS or a very, very low grade of G10. I don't see any fibers. Going on in this. It might be like a nylon impregnated material. I don't think so. I think it's just ABS. But it just has a cheapness to it. It's very lightweight, which is nice. And then again, if you know, a heavier knife just instinctively feels more stout. This is very lightweight, which is not a bad thing. But the lightness coupled with the chintzy scales, and it just makes for a cheap feeling knife. The very thin liner lock here. 5. A 5 will do this well in our first category. Let's take a look at the factory edge. Now this does have a half serrated blade. The serrations are well cut. Not a very high polish on the edge. Let's see how sharp it is. Yeah, it's decently sharp. It is not sliding off my nail at any point, and this will shave hairs right off. Yeah, that's a nice edge. Very sharp. Exactly what I'd want from this type of knife, this price range. Second category of factory edge and sharpness. I'll give that an 8. Well done. Edge retention. Let's get to the cardboard cutting. Got a fresh flooring box. Let's see how the little Coast does. Now for this test, I'm not going to use the serrations. I'm just going to stick on the flat. Oh, it's getting duller. 2. And 3. Let's see how that did. You can see on the finish where I did the majority of the cuts. And in that area, it glides right off the fingernail. No longer digs in. You can see up here I didn't do as much cutting. And it still just digs in. And as you move down, it just slides right off. Will no longer cut your hair. This has been a pretty significant loss. I'm going to put this as a 2. I think you're right in line with the Schrade. Next category is ergos and hotspots. And this is one of my bigger gripes with this Coast. The handle looks very nice. Somebody put in some thought into the design of this. They've got some good texturing here. Where you want some traction, it has an attempt at jimping. The problem lays with this being the number one cause of woe. The number one accuser. It is sharp. It is uncomfortable. Right where your index finger lays. It digs into your finger in a very, very uncomfortable manner. If you were to use this knife and keep it, I highly suggest getting some sandpaper. And it's only this very top one. It just pokes in very uncomfortably. The second offender in the ergonomics department is this lock. In either locked or unlocked position, look how much it protrudes above the grip. They have this decent jimping, but all you can feel is this off-centered doohickey where your thumb wants to be. And it just pushes your thumb almost out of the way. It's very annoying. It does not make for a comfortable grip in this pinch grip. Now, all they would have to do is make this more shallow or recess it into the grip a bit to get it out of the way. Not ideal. Does not make for a comfortable using position. And my last real big complaint in ergonomics is the grip down here. they did some nice texturing to provide you some traction. The problem is the inside of this is a very, very sharp lip. I've noticed this in a lot of these cheaper knives. They just don't round this off. The outside, nicely rounded, nicely comfortable. Look at the molding lines on the inside. And when you grip it, your finger kind of sinks into that and it's just not comfortable. It doesn't really hit me on the backside even though it's the same. It doesn't really bother me up here. I think because the blade is, yeah, the blade's in the way up here on this section. But down right here, it just digs into your ring and pinky finger. Again, some sandpaper in here would clear that right up. But as it sits from the factory, it is not a comfortable grip. I'm going to give this a 3. The handle has potential, and with a little bit of time and sandpaper, you could get it to a very comfortable grip because the shape of the grip is awesome. But as it sits from the factory, there are just too many issues to make this something you want to hold on to for any extended period of time. One of the nice things about softer steels like this is a lot of times you can go from a relatively dull edge like this to a hair-popping edge with a simple ceramic rod. So let's see if it's easy to sharpen on a ceramic rod. Little hand strap. And let's see where that got us. Oof. That did not help. That did not help us. It is still as dull and still sharp up here. Not going to take off the hair at all. Okay, onto the diamond stones then. Let's start on a 400 grit. Let's remove the material. Yep, much sharper now. Let's go a little bit higher grit. And about a minute on the diamond stone, and we are back to a nice factory edge. This is some soft steel. I think the softest of the bunch. And shaving again. Oh, I'm not in camera. But the hairs are proof. So the edge was too far gone to be saved with the ceramic rod, but the diamond rod just ripped material off of this edge, and it was easy to get it back. So we'll give this a 7. It's a pretty easy steel to work with. Does not take long to get it back to a factory edge. On to durability, let's go play some mumbly peg. Before we get to our mumbly peg, we do need to attack the juniper log and see if hitting this 10 times will roll the edge at all. Let's get to it. Because this knife has a lock, not a very common feature in knives in this price point, I'm going to go ahead and use it. Alright, let's take a look. Not bad. You hear that? Just the tiniest little bit of play back and forth on the blade. Nothing that if you shake you'll feel. Still a nice tight lockup. But there is that click now. Let's see how it handles the drop tests. Again, 10 drops from about 3 feet. 1, 2 on the tip. Tip is fine as to be expected. And the flip. There it is. Too much rotation. That's okay. We need to see it. Drop on the base. The lock is half deployed, but it is still locked up. The inertia is driving the actual lock down into the unlocked position. Put that back into lock. Alright, so mumbly peg madness. Off the elbow. Yes. Ooh, oh, stuck in there. Off the hat. No. I lost count. I always do this. I just lose count. I have too much fun. Too much fun. Over the shoulder. Did not get that one. That's my first time missing that one. Alright, one more for kicks and giggles. In the tip. Let's take a look. Overall, this Coast performed admirably. That little click is pretty much resolved itself. I can get it to do it every once in a while. I'm sure it's just the locking bar wearing in. But it's gone. The lockup is tight. No side-to-side movement to speak of. The edge, you can see where it bit into that piece of juniper, is still nice and sharp. It did not roll the edge. Very nicely done. Very nicely done. I'll give that a 10. You would never know that this played some nice mumbly peg. Deployment speed. The first pocket knife with a belt clip. That helps this category tremendously. Now the action is stiff. We knew that. It's not necessarily gritty. It's just too tight. And I'm sure you could loosen this up. You could get some lube in there. And unlike the previous folding knife that's riding on nylon, these are actually rolling on, I don't know if they're copper, if they're phosphor bronze bushings. I'm not entirely sure. They do have that golden tint to it, which I'm not sure the camera is picking up. So I bet with a little bit of love, you could get this thing to pop open just fine. But the deployment speed is not bad. It has a thumb stud. If you really get your wrist behind it, you can open it up. Out of the pocket, it's tip down carry. You know, I'm okay with either one. Some people are really persnickety about tip up versus tip down. If it's a good knife, it's a good knife. I'd probably prefer tip up, but I'm not a snob about it. Not bad on deployment speed. As it sits from the factory, I'm going to give this guy a 6. Carry comfort is a win. That is deep. Now, that thing hangs up, but that is deep. It doesn't get much better than that. Does not weigh a lot. It's a very lightweight blade. I'm guessing in the 3-ounce range. Very comfortable. That's exactly how I want to carry my blades. No complaints whatsoever. Gotta give it a 10. Pride of ownership. I don't think it's going to be terribly high for me on this knife. Now, it is a Coast, and it is a local company for me. But it's still a Chinese-made blade. It looks the part. It doesn't feel very good in the least bit. If you give this to your friend, they won't laugh at you, but they'll know it's a cheaper knife. just by the way it feels in your hand. This fake G10, the annoying protrusion that just digs into your finger. It's going to be marked up. The moment you use it, this black coating is going to come right off. Pride of ownership. It's just a basic, not the most aesthetically pleasing knife ever. But it is a name brand, an American name. You know, I'm going to give this a solid 6, just above average for pride of ownership. Last but certainly not least is your value for your money. $10 is not a lot of coin for this knife. I gotta say, it is durable. It looks okay. It's got a very good warranty behind it. It is easy to sharpen. It can be comfortable with a bit of work if you're willing to put in just, 5 minutes with some 400 grit sandpaper. You could get this to be a very comfortable knife. Not bad. Not bad for $10. Its real main drawback for me is its ergonomics, which can be fixed. Aesthetically, it's not my favorite, but it's just fine. And then, of course, its edge retention, I think, is the worst. I'm not going to say I think. This has the same steel, according to the manufacturer, but it held a better edge in this. So far, this has been the worst edge retention of the bunch. But it's a durable knife, and I'm going to give that a 7. Oh, yeah, we just did it there, didn't we? That is a massive jump. The previous one was, I believe, a 58 for the Grand Way. Stanley a 51, Grand Way of 58, and the Imperial was a 57, I do remember. 64. Wow. That killed the competition. The new champ in the house, the Coast DX344. This came in high with the durability test. It came out relatively unscathed. Carry comfort, it doesn't get too much better. A lightweight with a deep carry pocket. Very nicely done. Value for the money is high. Pride of ownership is just slightly above average as is deployment speed. It's very easy to sharpen. Ergos and hotspots, a 3. Edge retentions, of course, a 2. Makes up for it with the factory edge, was very nice. And aesthetics right down the middle. There it is, our new champion. We got way more to test, many more in the lineup. Stay tuned, more testing to be had. Thanks for watching, guys.